My sister told me I wasn't welcome at her wedding because my vibe didn't match the guest list. She forgot that I had been paying her mortgage, her husband's car note, and her stepdaughter's dance academy tuition for 2 years. So I pulled every dollar, and when the wedding photographer asked who was footing the bill, the whole room went silent. Let me back up. It was a Tuesday night in late September, and I was sitting cross-legged on my bathroom floor, holding a pregnancy test I had just taken for the 3rd time. Positive. Again. I was 8 weeks along, exhausted from a 14-hour shift at the hospital. I'm a traveling surgical nurse, the kind they fly in when a rural hospital is short-staffed and desperate, and I had just landed back in Charlotte after a 3-week assignment in Montana. My body ached, my ankles were swollen, and I was alone in a way that felt permanent. My phone buzzed. It was my older sister, Vanessa. A video call. I almost didn't answer. But Vanessa rarely called unless she needed something, and guilt is a powerful motivator when your only sibling rings at 11 p.m. I picked up. Her face filled the screen, glowing, perfectly contoured, ring light reflecting in her pupils. She was filming from her walk-in closet, surrounded by garment bags. "Okay, so I have the best news," she said, not asking how I was, not noticing the dark circles carved under my eyes. Derek proposed. Officially proposed. We're doing a February wedding. Valentine's weekend. The venue is insane, that glass conservatory outside Asheville. We booked it. I blinked. Vanessa, that's congratulations. That's huge. I know, right? So listen, I need to talk to you about the guest list. Something in her tone shifted. It was subtle, like a blade turning sideways before it cuts. We're keeping it very curated. Derek's business partners are coming. Some people from the firm. A few influencers I've been collaborating with. It's not going to be a big, traditional thing. It's more of a brand event, Aesthetic. Elevated. Okay, I said slowly. What does that have to do with me? Well, she paused, arranging her face into something that was supposed to look sympathetic. Derek and I talked, and we think it might be better if you didn't come. The bathroom tiles felt colder. Excuse me? It's not personal, Mia. It's just you're always coming straight from some random hospital in some random town, and you show up looking like you haven't slept in a week. Last Thanksgiving, you wore scrubs to dinner. Actual scrubs. I had just gotten off a 16-hour shift, Vanessa. Someone coded on my table. See, that's what I mean. You always have these intense stories that make people uncomfortable. Derek's partners are sophisticated. They don't want to hear about someone's spleen at the dinner table. And honestly, I need this day to be perfect. I can't have my maid of honor looking like she just crawled out of an on-call room. Maid of honor? My voice cracked. You were going to ask me to be your maid of honor? I was. But then Derek pointed out that the bridal party photos are going to be everywhere. His firm's social media, the influencer posts, maybe even a feature in Southern Bride. And you don't photograph well right now. You look tired all the time. You've gained weight. It's not the image we're going for. I looked down at my stomach. 8 weeks? She didn't know. Nobody knew. So you're uninviting me from your wedding, I said flatly, because I'm not pretty enough. God, don't be so dramatic. You can watch the live stream. I'll send you the link. And we'll do a sister's brunch after the honeymoon. Just us. I promise. She smiled, bright and camera ready, and hung up before I could respond. I sat on that bathroom floor for a long time. The pregnancy test sat on the counter like a small, white accusation. I was alone, pregnant, freshly discarded by the only family I had left, and somewhere in Asheville, my sister was choosing napkin colors for a wedding I wasn't allowed to attend. Here's what Vanessa didn't know, or more accurately, what Vanessa had chosen to forget. Our parents died in a house fire when I was 22, and she was 26. The insurance payout was split evenly. I used mine to pay off my nursing school loans and started taking every travel assignment I could get. The money was excellent, sometimes $12,000 a month with hazard pay and overtime, but I lived like a resident. Small apartments, used furniture, meal prep on Sundays. I banked everything because I had learned the hard way that the world can take everything from you in a single night. Vanessa took her half and moved to Charlotte with her boyfriend at the time, a personal trainer named Kyle, who convinced her to invest in a boutique fitness studio. It failed in 11 months. Kyle left. Vanessa was broke, heartbroken, and drowning in a lease she couldn't afford. That's when Derek appeared. Derek was a commercial real estate developer, 15 years older, divorced, with a 12-year-old daughter named Chloe from his first marriage. He was handsome in a boardroom way, cufflinks, pocket squares, firm handshake. He swept Vanessa off her feet, moved her into his oversized colonial in Myers Park, and introduced her to a world of wine tastings and charity galas. The problem was that Derek's world was mostly smoke. His development firm had 2 projects fall through back to back. He was leveraged to the ceiling. The colonial had a second mortgage, and Chloe's mother, who had primary custody, was threatening to take him back to court for unpaid child support. 2 years ago, Vanessa called me sobbing at 3 in the morning. Derek was going to lose the house. Chloe's dance academy was sending collection notices. They couldn't make the car payment on his Range Rover. If people found out, his reputation would be destroyed, and in commercial real estate, reputation was everything. Please, Mia, you're the only person I trust. Just until he closes the Meridian deal. 6 months, tops. I couldn't say no. Vanessa was all I had, so we set up an arrangement. I would pay the mortgage directly to the bank, $2,800 a month. I would cover Chloe's dance tuition at the Asheville Academy of Performing Arts, $1,400 a month. And I would handle Derek's Range Rover payment, $950 a month. Plus, a household fund of $600 a month that was supposed to cover groceries, but that I suspected went toward Vanessa's Sephora habit. Total, $5,750 a month. For 2 years. That's $138,000. The Meridian deal never closed. Derek pivoted to another project. Then, another. Vanessa started calling herself a lifestyle consultant, which, as far as I could tell, meant she posted photos of Derek's house on Instagram and tagged luxury brands hoping for sponsorships. They never paid me back. Not a dollar. They never even said thank you after the first 6 months. It just became expected, like oxygen. And now she was uninviting me because I didn't photograph well. The first hour after that call, I cried. I grieved. I pressed my hand against my stomach and whispered to the tiny life inside me that we would be okay, even if the world was full of people who only loved you when you were useful. But by midnight, the grief had burned down to something else. Something cold and precise, like the focus I felt in the OR, when a patient was crashing and there was no room for emotion, only action. I pulled out my laptop and opened my banking app. There they were, the scheduled transfers, lined up like soldiers I had been sending into battle for someone else's war. Mortgage, $2,800. Cancel. Dance tuition, $1,400. Cancel. Range Rover, $950. Cancel. Household fund, $600. Cancel. 4 taps. 4 confirmations. $5,750 a month. Gone. I exhaled. The apartment was quiet, but the silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like mine. But wasn't finished. Anger, the real kind, the kind that saves you, doesn't scream. It plans. I spent the next 3 hours going through 2 years of bank statements. Every transfer, every emergency Venmo. The time Vanessa needed $3,000 for a networking retreat that turned out to be a spa weekend. The time Derek called me directly asking for $5,000 to secure a permit that I later found out didn't exist. The $2,200 I sent for Chloe's costume fees for her Nutcracker performance, which Vanessa told me was mandatory, but which Chloe's mother later mentioned she had already paid. They had double-dipped. They had charged me for things already covered and pocketed the difference. Total documented amount, $138,000 in scheduled transfers, plus $14,600 in one-time requests. Grand total, $152,600. I sat back and stared at the number. That was a down payment on a house. That was my child's college fund. That was freedom, and I had handed it to people who wouldn't even let me sit at their table. I emailed my attorney. Her name was Grace, a former Army JAG officer who didn't believe in wasted words. I need a formal demand letter. I wrote, detailed accounting attached. I want it delivered by certified courier on February 13th, the day before the wedding. Grace called me 10 minutes later. Valentine's Day weekend? Really? She wanted a curated guest list. I'm just curating the mail. I love you, Mia. I'll have it drafted by Friday. The next 2 weeks were quiet on Vanessa's end. She didn't call to check on me. She didn't ask about my health or my assignments. She was deep in wedding planning mode, posting daily countdown stories 47 days until Mrs. Mitchell, with sparkle filters and champagne emojis. I watched from the outside like a ghost. On October 15th, the first domino fell. My phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I answered. Hi, is this Mia? This is Patricia from the Asheville Academy of Performing Arts. I handle Chloe Mitchell's enrollment. Yes, that's me. I'm calling because the October tuition payment didn't process. We have a grace period of 5 business days, but I wanted to reach out since you've always been so punctual. Patricia, I'm glad you called. I need to let you know that I'm no longer the responsible party on this account. Please redirect all billing to Derek Mitchell, going forward. I've canceled the automatic payments. Long pause. Oh, I see. Should I update the emergency contact information as well? Yes. Remove me entirely, please. Understood. I hope everything is all right. It will be. I hung up and waited. The call from Vanessa came 6 hours later. What did you do? She didn't say hello. She was whispering, which meant Derek was nearby, and she didn't want him to hear her panicking. You're going to have to be more specific, I said. Chloe's dance school called Derek. They said the payment bounced. He's losing his mind. He's blaming me. Sounds like a conversation between a father and his daughter's school. Mia, stop. Just tell me what's going on. Did your bank freeze your account? No. I canceled the transfers. All of them. Silence. Then, in a voice I barely recognized, all of them? The mortgage, the dance tuition, the car payment, the grocery fund, all of it, effective immediately. You can't, Mia, the mortgage is due on the 1st. That's in 2 weeks. We don't have Derek is between projects. You know that? I know a lot of things, Vanessa. I know you've been living off my paychecks for 2 years while telling your Instagram followers that Derek's firm is thriving. I know you uninvited me from your wedding because I don't fit your aesthetic. And I know that the sister who used to braid my hair and promise we'd always have each other just told me I'm too ugly to stand next to her in a photo. That's not what I said. You said I don't photograph well. You said I've gained weight. You said I look tired. Because you do. I was trying to help you. Then help yourself, Vanessa. Pay your own mortgage. I'm done. You're being selfish. You're punishing me over a stupid phone call. No. I'm respecting your boundaries. You said my vibe doesn't match. Well, neither does my money. You can't have me as your ATM and your embarrassment at the same time. You will regret this. Her voice had gone flat, dangerous. Derek will find a way. He always does. I hope so. For Chloe's sake. I hung up. The next month was war. Derek called me 4 times. The first call was charming. Hey, Mia. I think there's been a miscommunication. Let's grab coffee and sort this out like adults. The second was threatening. My lawyer says you made a verbal commitment. We'll take you to court. The third was desperate. The bank sent a notice. We have 30 days. Please. The fourth was silent. He called, breathed into the phone for 10 seconds, and hung up. Vanessa deployed the guilt squad. Our mother's best friend, Aunt Linda, not a real aunt, called to tell me I was dishonoring your parents' memory by tearing apart the only family you have left. A cousin I hadn't spoken to since the funeral sent a long text about forgiveness. One of Vanessa's influencer friends actually DM'd me on Instagram. Heard you're going through some stuff. Vanessa is really worried about you. She says you might be having a breakdown. The narrative was clear. I wasn't a woman who had been exploited and discarded. I was a crazy, bitter spinster having a mental health crisis. I documented everything. Screenshots, recordings where legal, bank statements. I sent it all to Grace. Then, on November 3rd, I got a fraud alert. Someone had attempted to use my debit card number, the one linked to the account I had used for their payments, to make a $400 purchase at a bridal boutique. My blood went cold, then hot, then ice. I called the bank, reported it, canceled the card, filed a police report. The transaction was traced to an IP address registered at Vanessa's home network. My sister had tried to steal from me to buy her wedding dress. That was the moment something fundamental broke between us. Not cracked, not bent, broke, like a bone that would never heal straight. I called Grace. Add the fraud to the demand letter, and I want a lien on the house. Mia, are you sure about the timing? The wedding is in 3 months. The wedding I'm not invited to? Yes, I'm sure. The weeks crawled by. November became December became January. I was showing now, 4 months along, and I hadn't told a soul except my OB/GYN. I picked up a local assignment at a hospital in Raleigh, so I wouldn't have to fly. I went to my ultrasound alone. I heard my baby's heartbeat alone, and I was okay with that, because alone was safer than surrounded by people who only saw you as a wallet. February arrived. The wedding was on the 14th. On the morning of the 13th, a certified courier rang the doorbell of Vanessa's Colonial in Myers Park and handed Derek a thick envelope. Formal demand for repayment. $152,600, itemized, documented, with a note from Grace that read, "Failure to respond within 30 days will result in the filing of a civil complaint and the placement of a lien on the property at 412 Wentworth Lane." Vanessa called me 17 times that night. I didn't answer. The wedding was at noon on February 14th. I wasn't there, obviously, but I heard about it. I heard about everything. What I did was subtle. I didn't crash the wedding. I didn't make a scene. I simply told the truth to one person, Chloe. Sweet, smart, 12-year-old Chloe, who had been texting me for weeks asking why I stopped coming to her recitals, who had asked me point blank if she had done something wrong, who called me Aunt Mia, even though I wasn't technically her aunt. I didn't tell her about the money. I didn't poison her against her father. I simply answered her question honestly when she texted me the morning of the wedding. "Are you coming today? Dad said you and Vanessa had a fight. I saved you a seat." I wrote back, "I wasn't invited, sweetheart. Your dad and Vanessa decided I don't fit in with their friends. But I love you, and I'm proud of you, always." Chloe, being 12, and having her mother's stubborn sense of justice, took a screenshot. She showed it to her mother, Derek's ex-wife Amanda, who was dropping Chloe off for the ceremony. Amanda, who had spent 3 years in family court fighting Derek over unpaid child support, who knew exactly what kind of man he was, walked right into that glass conservatory and sat in the front row. I wasn't there, but Amanda told me everything later over coffee. The ceremony went fine. It was the reception that unraveled. Derek had invited 2 potential investors for a mixed-use development in South End. He had been pitching them for months, painting himself as a visionary developer with deep pockets and a stable personal life. The wedding was supposed to be the final proof look at me, successful, settled, married to a beautiful woman, living the dream. During the cocktail hour, Amanda approached the investors. She didn't make a scene. She simply introduced herself as Derek's ex-wife and asked casually if they had completed their due diligence on his firm. She mentioned the 2 failed projects. She mentioned the second mortgage. She mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that his sister-in-law had been financing his lifestyle for 2 years and had just filed a formal demand for $152,000. The investors excused themselves before the appetizers were served. Meanwhile, Chloe brave, heartbroken. Chloe stood up during the toasts. She was supposed to read a poem Vanessa had written for her about blended families. Instead, she held up her phone and said, in a clear voice that carried across the conservatory, "My Aunt Mia wasn't invited today because my dad said she doesn't fit in. But Aunt Mia paid for my dance classes for 2 years. She's the reason I'm in the Nutcracker. And she's the only adult who told me the truth when I asked." She sat down. The conservatory was dead silent. Vanessa's face crumbled. Not in anger. In recognition. The awful, irreversible recognition that the narrative she had built was made of paper, and a 12-year-old had just set it on fire. Derek grabbed Chloe's arm and hissed at her to sit down. Amanda stood up from the front row and said, loud enough for the room, "Take your hand off my daughter, Derek. Or the next envelope you get will be from my lawyer, not your sister-in-law." Half the guests left before the main course. I found out about all of this at 9 p.m. That night, sitting in my apartment eating takeout pad thai, when Amanda called me and narrated the entire thing while laughing so hard she had to put me on speaker. "The photographer quit," she said. "He said he didn't have enough smiling faces to fill the album." I laughed. It hurt my ribs. I laughed anyway. The aftermath played out exactly the way math always does, slowly, inevitably, without mercy. Without my payments, the mortgage defaulted. Derek couldn't refinance because of the lien Grace had filed. They listed the house in March. It sold in April, but after paying the bank, the lien, and the back taxes Derek had been hiding, they walked away with less than $11,000. Vanessa moved into a one-bedroom apartment in a complex off the interstate. Derek's development firm dissolved. He took a job managing a commercial property, not developing, managing. He wore a polo with the company logo now, instead of cufflinks. I didn't hear from Vanessa for 4 months. Not a call, not a text, not even a passive-aggressive Instagram story. I had my baby in June. A girl. I named her Noelle because she was the best gift I never expected, and because the whole mess had started around the holidays. My neighbor drove me to the hospital. Grace brought flowers. Amanda sent a tiny dance leotard with a note that said, "For future Nutcracker auditions." In August, I was at the park with Noelle, watching her stare at the trees with the intense focus that only a 2-month-old can manage, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "It's Vanessa. I know you probably blocked me. I'm using a friend's phone. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know that I got a job. A real one. I'm an admin assistant at a dental office. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. Derek and I separated last month. He's been lying about things I didn't even know about. You were right. About everything. I'm sorry I made you feel like you weren't enough. You were always more than enough. I was just too blind and too proud to see it. I don't expect you to respond. But I needed to say it." I read it 3 times. Noelle cooed in her stroller, reaching for a leaf that had drifted onto her blanket. I didn't respond that day, or the next week. But in September, when Chloe's school hosted a fall showcase, and she was performing a solo, I got a text from the girl herself. "Please come. I'm terrified. Mom and Dad will both be there, but I need my Aunt Mia." I went. I sat in the back row, holding Noelle against my chest. Chloe danced beautifully strong, graceful, growing into someone remarkable. When she took her bow, she looked straight at me and blew a kiss. After the show, I was walking to my car when I saw Vanessa standing by the exit. She looked different, thinner, not in a glamorous way, in a worked hard and skipped lunch way. No ring light, no contour, just her. She saw Noelle and her eyes went wide. "Mia, is that you had a baby?" "In June." "You didn't tell me. You uninvited me from your wedding because I gained weight. I figured a pregnancy announcement wouldn't fit your aesthetic." She flinched. She deserved to. "Can I?" she started, then stopped. "Can I hold her?" I looked at my sister. I looked at the woman who had called me a bad photograph, who had tried to steal from me, who had sent flying monkeys to paint me as unstable. And I also looked at the woman who once sat with me through 3 thunderstorms because I was afraid of lightning, who taught me how to French braid, who held my hand at our parents' funeral and whispered, "We still have each other." I didn't hand Noelle over. Not yet. But I didn't walk away either. "Her name is Noelle," I said. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "She's beautiful." "She is." "Mia, don't," I said gently. "Not here. Not tonight. But maybe we can get coffee next week. Just us." She nodded, pressing her lips together to keep from breaking. I walked to my car, my reliable, paid-off Civic. I strapped Noelle into her car seat, started the engine, and sat there for a moment. Vanessa had told me I didn't fit her aesthetic. She had erased me from her guest list because I wasn't polished enough, photogenic enough, impressive enough. She had treated me like a subscription service useful in private, embarrassing in public, but sitting there in that parking lot, with my daughter sleeping peacefully in the back seat, my mortgage non-existent, my savings rebuilding, and my conscience clean, I knew exactly who I was. I was the woman who showed up at 3 a.m. when the world fell apart. I was the woman who wrote checks without asking for credit. I was the woman who held everything together so quietly that no one noticed until I stopped. And now, I was the woman who stopped. Vanessa wanted a wedding full of winners. She wanted a life that looked perfect from the outside. She got her wish for exactly one afternoon before reality walked in wearing a 12-year-old's ballet shoes and a $152,000 demand letter. I wasn't the loser she thought I was. I was the foundation she was standing on. And foundations don't apologize for being underground. They just hold still until they decide not to. I pulled out of the parking lot, turned up the radio, and drove home. If you made it this far, drop a comment and tell me, would you have cut the money sooner, or would you have held on like I did? And don't forget to subscribe to RK Revenge Power for more stories like this. Hit that bell so you never miss an upload. I'll see you in the next one.